So let us introduce our guest here. Larry D. Trice II, they them pronouns, is passionate about bringing trans voices to the forefront of theater, leading as the artistic director of Trans Voices Cabaret Chicago and casting director of Gender Fucked Production. Larry creates a welcoming space for genuine representation. A proud Chicago native, they contribute their talents as a company member of Blank Theater Company and are excited to be producing as part of the Lookout series at the Steppenwolf Theater on June 1st. Don't miss Larry's upcoming performance as the understudy for Hedwig in Hedwig and the Angry Inch with Haven Theater. Keep up with them. I believe this is across all socials. Yes, it is. It says so in the bio. El Trice Belts. That is L-T-R-I-C-E-B-E-L-T-S. Now let us welcome Larry Trice.
Hey, what's
Hello,
up?
hello,
Hello,
hello, hello.
Shane.
It's so good to see your beautiful face.
Yes, it's good to see you too.
Yeah.
One quick thing. It's Trice.
Oh, I always thought, oh my God. You know what? You
It's
know what?
fine.
I don't
You're
know
not
why
the
I
first
thought
person
it
that's done it. It happens actually quite often. And it is my favorite thing. Um, yeah, it is one of
No!
my favorite things. I love it.
Here, here I
Yeah.
am just being like, I'm being a good Latino and being like, Trice.
No, if I had my mom's last name, I'd be a Garcia.
ah, ah. We're off
Yeah.
to such a hot start.
Hey,
Oh my
it's fine.
goodness. Oh,
We're
this is
here. We're
this
gonna
is
have a great time.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right. So for those that don't know, I've known you for quite a bit of time. So we
Yeah.
actually met doing a reading of a very interesting play that I don't
hmm
even remember the name
Oh,
of.
I
I
looked this
hard
up on purpose because I was like, wait, what was the name of it? It was called Hunties.
Hunties. Oh my god.
Hunties. Is what it was called. I didn't look up all the rest of the information. I just looked up, I was like, what's the name of the show? Because it was a fun little reading that we did.
Hmm.
With who else was in that?
I know Nelson was in that.
Yeah, Nelson was in it. Michael Graham was in it.
Scott
Um,
directed it.
Scott directed it. Um, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a fun little time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think all I really remember was like when we were have scenes together, like I feel like it was just us being really bitchy at each other and I really loved it.
That's what the script was. Yes, it was. And it was fantastic. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a good time. I had a good time.
I had a, I
And
had a
then
fantastic time.
yeah, and then also you helped me a while back work on
Mhm.
an audition because I had to submit something where I had to sing a song in Spanish and I'm not
Yeah.
a singer.
hmm
And I'm also a bad Latin boy who barely knows any Spanish.
What?
And
Not bad. It's fine.
and so I remember I was looking for a Spanish speaker, and like the one thing that who could help me with the singing, just because it's like you would have the knowledge of the pronunciations and all that other
hmm
stuff, and like something that I just remember from working with you on that I really appreciated was that you brought up just about like coming in with confidence and just enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I felt like that really set a good tone for the rest of it in terms of just like, because singing to me, I find it to be one of the most scariest and vulnerable things that a person can do. Because I really think it really is you like spilling your heart and your soul out for
Yeah.
somebody.
It
Like,
really is.
yeah, even if you're
Sometimes it
just doing
really
funny music.
goes there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, I've always been embarrassed to do it. And so like I really that like little moment has kind of like created like a reframe for me like whenever like I do have to sing for an audition. Like I had to sing for an audition that I didn't even realize I had to sing for like until the day of. And I was like, "Nah, fuck it.
All right,
I'll
let's
do
go.
it. We're going to do it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna
It's
have
going to be
fun.
fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be
It's
fine."
I don't remember who it was, but it was a master class that I did a while ago, and they were like,
Mhm.
"Remember that every audition is just another chance for you to perform.
Mhm.
You're just getting to perform again, and that's what you want to do anyway. So go have fun and perform."
Yeah.
So I've like in the very recesses of my mind when I'm going into an audition, I think of like, oh, I'm possibly gonna get a job out of this.
Mhm.
but at the front of my mind, it's this is a chance for me to perform for some other people a song that I like to perform, or a monologue that I like to do. So let's just do that, and have fun and make it enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I feel like I've been struggling a little bit with that recently because I got to say, like, I've been getting some like auditions coming through, like theater wise, and every first round has been video. And while I've
Mhm.
appreciated that for a bit, I've been feeling the urge of just like sharing that energy again. Just
Yeah.
because I think for me, it's like I don't mind doing first round on camera, but like first round on stage, it's different.
There's a
Like I
different
feel like
energy when you're
yeah,
in the room with everyone and you get like direct feedback from how what they're doing in the room. Even though like having been on either side of the table, you're like, I'm going to be stoic and not going to give them anything, and it everyone gives something, which
yeah,
adjusts what you're doing, and it changes the energy and how the audition flows and works in the room, you know.
yeah.
And it's really interesting. With I do love a video audition, and that's how TVC runs our auditions right now. But I have a strict rule for myself where I will only film it 3 times,
That's
because if
smart.
I was actually in
Hmm.
the audition room, I would only get to do it once,
Hmm.
maybe twice.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because if you do it more than three times, you start overthinking it. And
exactly.
mhm.
Start getting hypercritical about every little thing. Did my hand go here? Did I look this way at the right time? Was this frame correct in this moment? Like,
Yeah,
no, I did it 3 times and it's fine. Let's
yeah.
one of these will be what we do.
Well, the amount of times too where like I've overthought it to the point where it's like I do a take where I'm like, man, it's good, but the eyeline is ugly, and
Right.
then I'm just spending time like just reframing it
Just
again and
reframing
just
it to
being
like
like,
get the
is my
eyeline
eyeline good?
perfect.
Is my eyeline good?
Exactly. And like, no, don't gotta do that anymore. At the beginning, I filmed a lot of things so many times. And it's also like musical theater audition cuts for me usually end up being like a bigger belty number.
Mhm.
So if I'm filming that same section 40 times, the
Oof.
amount of
No,
energy that goes into
no,
that 40 times,
no.
babe, calm
Yeah,
it down.
yeah.
And that's something that's been super helpful for me recently with self tapes. It's just like, hey, film it 3 times and like put that much energy in it. If you really, really, really need to film it another time, give it a 24-hour rest and film it again.
Yeah. Well, and I think also what that does too, it holds you accountable to your prep. Because if
Yeah,
you're only giving yourself three, you better have done your prep to know it confidently enough to play around in three takes and let it go.
exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's something that's really helped a lot in my prep work too, because like I live the life of an understudy right now, which is really cool, and I'm not upset about it. Understudying is really such a great way to learn all of the things about theater and how to prepare yourself
Hmm.
for doing anything else, you know? Um,
Hmm.
so like I'm about to understudy Hedwig. I just understudied Michael in Tick Tick Boom with Boho.
Yeah.
And to be an understudy, you have to do all your prep work.
Hmm. Oh my
Like you
God.
have
Yeah.
to make sure you are prepared. Like you have that
Yes.
script and you like go through it and you make sure everything is lined up where it needs to be, because you don't get that many chances to do it before you're doing it in front of an audience.
No, not at all. It's like,
If like you get anything, you
yeah.
know?
Well, and also sometimes too, if you're doing a role so big, the put in isn't even, oh, we're going to do the whole play. The put in is what are the key scenes you need to work on.
Right.
And then you're just kind of, you're
What are
just,
your quick changes?
yeah, yeah, you're kind of freeballing it for
Right.
like the rest of it. So yeah, no.
Yeah. And it
Hmm.
is an intense time. Like I think understanding is super cool.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should do it at least once, because truly it is you learn so much about yourself and how to prepare yourself for anything when you are the understudy, because you also don't get noticed most of the time that you're going on.
No.
Like I have noticed for Hedwig, I have some guaranteed performances and I'm like, great, I know when I'm going on, fantastic. I can prepare myself mentally for that. But also,
Hmm.
most of the time when you're an understudy, you don't know you're going on ever until you are going on.
Hmm.
Um, and like that happened to me when I was understudying in She Loves Me. I was the understudy Sheepos with Blank Theater.
Hmm.
And I was out going to the movies, literally buying candy, and got a phone call from the stage manager and had my friend pick up the phone because I was checking out. And I'm like, I'm not going to pick up the phone while I'm talking to a cashier. That's rude. Answer this for me. And they're like, hi, this is Larry's secretary. How can I help you? And they're like, hi, this is Larry's stage manager. They're going on today.
Oh my god, that is so
Um,
wild.
and I was like, wait, what did you just say? Okay, cool.
Oh man, yeah,
Good
yeah,
thing this is an early movie.
yeah. No, I've understudied so many times, so many
Yeah.
times, and it's just one of those where it's also strange because understudying is also an experience where it's like there's so many things that exist at the same time. It feels like you're a part of the team, but yet it doesn't.
Yeah.
You're an observer of it while kind of sometimes passively participating, depending on if you got guarantees or not, or anything like that.
Hmm.
Or the notes that sometimes you get are always, they kind of contradict each other. Like the notes you get is, we want you to also have your own take on it, but you still have to honor all the choices that other person made.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And like depending on the and how closely to that are they going to stick, you know? Like depending on the director you get or the team you're working with. Some of them are like,
Mhm.
I want that performance. You are the understudy,
Yeah.
you should give me that performance. And then sometimes you're like, hey, we know you're not going to give this exact same performance. In the case of me, I usually can't literally give you the exact same performance because me and the other person look very different most of the time.
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, I've had experiences where it's like a lot of times I'm the much taller person than the
right.
person I'm understudying, and so it's
Um,
like I feel like I get the note where it's just like, hey, Shane, just like so like feel like I get messed up because usually the notes are okay, yeah, you can take up more space with this, and that's totally fine, and move out of the way, you're an ogre, you're blocking everyone.
right. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh
move
no,
move
I'm
out of the
not
way, you
ogre.
cave troll.
Well, yeah, I just it's really cool. But like
Yeah.
I honestly every time I've understudied, it's been a fun time.
Yeah.
And it's also very like the amount of prep you get depending on the theater company you work for as an understudy across like all of the times I've ever done it. It
Oh
is
my god.
the amount
Oh
of
my god.
there are some times when you're like, you haven't thought about understudies for rehearsal process. Excellent, great, thank you. And sometimes you're like, you thought of understudies because you understand that we're in a pandemic and you will need them. Um,
Hmm.
but that is the extent of your thought process.
Yeah. Okay, I've done shows where it's like they'd have like four rehearsals because they were going to give the understudies a guaranteed show, and so they wanted to make
Mhm.
sure like you were solid across the board.
Yeah,
And then other processes where it's just like you get one,
yeah.
you get one.
We're gonna run through the show one time with all the understudies. And that's what you're getting.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, I can't have three tracks. I can't like do all three tracks. No, no, just pick your
Mm,
priority tracks.
exactly. Pick your priority track and go with that. Thank you. It's like great, cool.
Hmm.
I have only actually had to swing once. So usually when
Hmm.
I've understudied, I've only ever had one track to follow, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. But the one time I had to swing, I was like, oh God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Swings are heroes. Oh my
Yes.
God,
Yes.
a swing is a hero.
Yes.
Because having to learn multiple tracks and keep them all ready to go, the level of work that goes into that, like,
Yeah. Yeah. No.
wow.
One. Yeah. One of my early experiences was it was I had to understudy three tracks. There was like 15 to 20 scenes. Each person, they didn't really have ASMs to help with the changes because it's like everyone was like, it was one of those where it's like
Yeah.
everyone is sitting in a chair on stage, so they're
And now everyone
always on
moves the
stage.
chair that they're
So
sitting on.
now they're helping someone with their tie, they're helping someone with this and that, and
Yeah.
then it would be. So it's like everyone was helping each other with changes and all this other stuff, moving in furniture, and of course it's one of those things where it's just like it sets a music and it needs to land on the dot,
Hmm.
and then so like I was about to go on for a role, like I didn't actually end up having to, but I almost did because they were going to get like Chicago Med or something like that. And they're
Hmm.
like, "Hey, do you want to run any scenes?" I was like, "I'd love to do transitions."
Hmm.
I was like you're not worried
Can we
about the
please
scene?
just do transitions?
No, no. I'm like,
No.
no. The acting will be fine. I want to do transitions. That's
Yeah.
hard.
That's hard. Let's just do transitions for this.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Because that is transitions are also so important for so many things. I have God, yeah.
Oh, yeah, if
Um,
you get it wrong, you're killing the energy of the show. So
exactly.
it's like
Exactly.
you got to get it right.
Yeah.
So,
No, and good.
oh no, good, go, 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 go.
No, you're good.
Okay, so I wanted to start from the top.
Mhm.
So, so you are a Chicago native, correct?
Yeah. I was born and
Okay,
raised here.
born and raised in
Grew up in Humboldt
Chicago.
Park, and then we moved to Belmont Cragen, and now my family lives in Elmwood Park and further west. And I'm in Edgewater.
Ah, beautiful. So we're basically
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah. How did you like growing up in Humboldt Park? Because because that was a big Puerto Rican neighborhood.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm mixed Puerto Rican and black.
Hmm.
And so I loved growing up over there. And going to school like in Humboldt Park. Because I went to Sabin Magnet. And
Hmm.
then for high school, I went to Northside Prep, and my brother went to Roberto Clemente, which like when he graduated, he was just right down the street,
Yeah.
from Sabin, because it's Sabin, Jose de Diego, and Clemente all right next to each other.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it was great growing up in Humboldt Park. I grew up in Humboldt Park in the 90s, and like
Hmm.
people still like are like, "Oh, Humboldt Park." And I'm like, what are you worried about? Like
Hmm.
it's a great, beautiful place. Like
Yes.
some of my favorite restaurants are over there. Some of them have closed because time's just how it works.
Hmm.
Like, and it was a fantastic time. I loved going to the park. The one time I broke my arm was at Humboldt Park, and it is
Oh
a core
God.
memory of mine. That actually is a core memory of my mom's, actually, because I was like 2, and I like broke like my wrist or something. And they they talk about it all the time. And they're like, yeah, you had your little cast waving around like a baton and like a club. And I was like, great, cool. But like I learned how to ride a bike over there. I learned how to swim over there. Humboldt Park is such a beautiful neighborhood. And there's
Hmm.
so much like culture over there that I
Yeah.
think people need to get out and see more. I need to get out there more.
Yeah. Well, the Puerto
Um,
Rican parade is
oh
so
my God, it's
fucking
so cool.
great. It's so
I've
good.
walked in it 3 times, and I will walk in it every time somebody's like, "You want to be in the Puerto Rican parade?" Absolutely, that is my favorite parade in the city. I like the Pride Parade too; it's very fun.
Hmm.
But the Puerto Rican parade, growing up and doing that, was so cool. To be a part of that and see all the love and joy that it brings out in people. When
Yeah.
they see all the floats and everything going by under the banderas, and like it's fantastic.
Oh, I love it. One thing
Yeah.
about Humboldt Park too, though, is because I've read when I was like looking up like Puerto Rican food and cuisine
Mhm.
that like this is specifically a Chicago Puerto Rican thing, the plantain sandwich,
The
right?
jibarito, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that is from, I believe the restaurant's name is Borinquen. And it
Hmm.
was on California and North Avenue, I think, like about that corner there.
Hmm.
And I don't remember how or when it became a thing, but I like once it became a thing, it was done. Everyone knew this. It was like all the Puerto Rican restaurants in the entire city had this sandwich immediately. Like, and it's wild. And it's super cool that it's just like, yeah, we took a steak sandwich and we made the bread into plantains instead.
Oh man, yeah. I still
Yeah.
haven't done it. I still have not done it.
What?
Hmm.
It is honestly, it is fantastic. If you've ever like, it is fantastic. It's so good. If you've ever had tostones and like eating all your stuff with that,
Hmm.
like using your tostone to hold everything, um, that is what this is. It is fantastic.
But yeah, I love tostones. I mean, I mean, I think it's also because it's like a lot of times when I get Puerto Rican food, like I'm just obsessed with always like getting stacked with pasteles.
Ah,
Like,
yes. See, my grandfather just makes those when I want them. So I help him every time. It is a thing. Pasteles are a very intense process.
oh my god, yeah.
Like holiday season comes along and everyone gets a phone call or a text message that's like, "Hey, is Emilio making pasteles this year? Are we gonna go over there and help him make them? Like, what's the process? What's the protocol? How are we doing this?" That's my grandfather. Because that's who we get them from. Now a couple of my cousins make them now, which is really cool. I still have to call somebody and like go to their house to make them because there's also like a special machine for them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the pasteles are basically, it's I think it's like bananas and like some potatoes and like a bunch of other like veggies and stuff that you need
Hmm.
to grind down into a paste. to make the masa for them. And so there's a machine that just like it's basically just like a giant grating machine that just spins, has a plate inside that spins, and you dump everything in there and it grates everything out and pushes it all out as the masa. And then you mix it all together, and then you start putting them on the banana leaves or however you're making them, because now people make them with
Mm.
the wax paper and banana leaves and tie them with the string. You have the
Yep.
people that are making them with aluminum foil, which like I'm not mad at you for making them with aluminum foil. It is more cost effective, but I can taste the difference. When you don't wrap it, like sometimes like when we make them, literally my family doesn't have a decision on how you're going to make them, if you're wrapping them
Mm.
in the paper and string or if you're doing aluminum foil. But regardless, if you're doing the aluminum foil, you still wrap it in something else and then put the
Yeah.
aluminum foil in it, as it has to have that barrier.
No,
And then
it really does.
yeah, and then I have pastellas in my freezer all year.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
It's
no, like
beautiful.
and that's what I'm used to too, because like I'm Nicaraguan, and so like
Mhm.
when Nicaraguans make their tamales, it's always a banana leaf, always
Yeah,
banana leaf, and like to me, like I don't want to do it any other way, just because it's like
right.
the way that it holds, like in terms of the moisture and the texture you get out of it, it's just like it's
Yeah,
unmatched. It's unmatched.
exactly. And like aluminum foil breaks so easily.
Hmm.
And then you get water in your pastella and it comes out gross.
Yeah,
So wrap it in paper and the banana leaves and do it that way. It's a great
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And it
Keep keep the
tastes,
shape,
you will
please.
enjoy it so much more.
Yeah, God,
Um,
please keep the shape.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a really, I loved it growing up in Humboldt Park. I think it's cool.
Yeah, and then how did you get introduced to the arts? Because like I know you're a musical theater performer, so I don't know what came first.
Yeah.
Was there like singing that came first, theater that came first, musical theater? Like what happened?
Um, Opera came first.
Opera. Okay, that's why you and
So
Michelle get along. Okay.
yeah. So actually what came first was my like grandmother made me sing with the church choir for like a couple of years in my youth, on my father's family's church choir. So I did that for a little bit, and then um I my grade school, Mr. Vilaseco was our music teacher, and he signed up my school for the lyric opera, like lunchtime opera series or whatever. I don't know what it was called. It was many moons ago. But they used to, and I don't know if they still do like condensed versions of the operas
Hmm.
in high schools.
Yeah.
So the first show I ever saw was La Boheme, and I think I was in like third or fourth grade, and it was like a super condensed version. They sang like the big hits, and had like a shipping box that was the set that just like unfolded, and they like did the show,
Hmm.
and it was in Roberto Clemente High School, and I was like, what is this? This is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
There's no microphones, they're just singing and I can hear them clearly. What? And I thought it was so cool. um and so opera came first, really, because I then did, and like choruses, because I did the All City Youth Chorus, which was a thing when I was in grade school, and then I did chorus all through high school.
Hmm.
But um, in my senior year, junior and senior year of high school, I got connected with After School Matters,
Hmm.
which is a great program for anybody who's listening and out there. Support After School Matters in Chicago as much as you can. It does great things for kids in schools. But After School Matters, after school program that they either come to your school or you go to a specific location and you do like an art thing, basically.
Yeah.
So the art thing I was in was the apprenticeship with Chicago Opera Theater,
Oh
um,
damn.
which like it sounds really fancy when you call it by its title, but it was a bunch of high school kids with some educators from Chicago Opera Theater at Gallery 37 learning how to do like put on operas and like do performances. So the first thing we did was we did Handel's Messiah. And like different students in the program got to be soloists with some of the professional um artists that they brought in.
Hmm.
So that was really cool. And then we did Pirates of Penzance the year after that, and I was Frederick in Pirates of Penzance.
That one is so fun.
Pirates
That's
is
so
so
fun.
much fun. I literally anytime somebody's like pirates, I'm like, yes, let's go. I have the entire score memorized. I am always ready to go. If you ever need a Frederick, I got you. I have it ready to go at all times. And that's also like played into like my like life of musical theater too. Of like I started I did choir and like I did musical theater in high school. We did Guys and Dolls was the first musical I ever did. And then did the Chicago Opera Theater stuff. And then I actually went to school to be a marine biologist first.
Oh,
Um, and then I was like, I'm gonna be a surgeon because this was when Grey's Anatomy was like starting and like super popular. So then I like did a bunch of pre-med courses, like a smart one here, very good at math and sciences, and did really good in those courses. And then decided that I really wanted to do opera. So I was at Chicago or Wright College, which is
more
one of the city
practical.
colleges. Yeah, more practical. Be an opera singer, not a doctor. Don't work with animals. Go sing. My mom was very excited when I made that choice, you know? Um, to this day, she's like, you could still be a doctor, you know, grad school is a thing. And I'm like, about the MCAT, no. I don't feel like sitting for that exam. Mom, it would be fun. Because I'm a weirdo and I like taking standardized tests because I was
Mhm.
really good at them. Like through grade school and stuff, but also like I haven't been in a classroom in like 10 years. I don't really want to do that again.
Yeah, yeah. The energy to go back, it's a lot.
It's a
It's
lot.
really a lot.
Like part of me wants to go back to become and get like a master's degree in vocal pedagogy because like I love the voice. It is the coolest instrument I've ever
Mhm.
found. The voice can do so many cool things. And I would love to be somebody who like studies the voice and like then goes and teaches people how to like play with their voice and do stuff with it.
Yeah,
But also the thought of going back to school is insanity to me.
yeah. Well, it feels like too with going back to school. It's kind of like going to grad school. I feel like you number one, like as someone who has accrued a lot of debt in grad school, it's
Mhm.
you got to have like a specific purpose for going back and knowing what your track is.
Mhm.
Like you can't just like go in it like you did with your BA, but also it's kind of like what are the avenues to get this thing funded possibly. So it's kind of like you
Yeah.
have like all the hard work in a lot of ways is done before it because you got
Mhm.
to like find out what is like the viability of me doing this before you even enter into the space.
Oh yeah, I have a few friends that are like going through the process to try to do grad auditions and stuff right now, and just like listening to them and being a shoulder for them and talking about stuff that they have to do and make sure they're doing. And like a couple of them, this is like their second or third round going through this. And it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much because the first time you do it, you either like, if you don't get it, whatever, but you learn so much. You get so much information on like, oh, your audition package just wasn't set up the right way to do like this. And also like you
Mm-hmm.
weren't thinking properly in terms of like how to fund the program in the first place and like which school worked for what you specifically were looking for. You
Yes.
and like yeah, because it's not just like a BA going to like one of the bigger like group auditions and being like, I'm just gonna audition for any of the theater schools and it'll be great. No, the grad school is so much more specific.
Yes.
And you must really know because like some of the schools you go and you teach undergrad courses and some of them you don't teach at and some of the ones that you teach at will give you a stipend for that and like give you a bunch of tuition funding for that, but then some of them that you don't teach at do the same
Yep.
question mark.
Yep. Some has you working in the conservatory, in the repertory, so
Right,
you could actually feel like a professional actor before you get out.
exactly, and some don't have a program that does that for you.
Nope.
And so that's you really have to spend so much time looking
Mhm.
into that and figuring out what you're going to do for grad school. And also it's just like it's so daunting. I have definitely spent some time like looking at the different like master's programs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that. And then there is a whole global pandemic that changed the way all of those programs funded and functioned, and they decided to like some of them don't exist anymore. um
And some of them
and
are,
it's
and some of them are going. DEI don't know her.
right. Who? What? I don't know what that means. Um, yeah, and it's a wild, wild world out there in this existence.
Yeah. Well, but also I think that is the beautiful thing sometimes about grad
Yeah,
school. It's kind of like it's always gonna fucking be there. So it's just kind of
exactly.
like when you're ready, you're ready.
Exactly. And that's also my other thing of like when I left school, a bunch of my friends were like, "You're going to New York right away, aren't you?" And I was like, "I'm going home to Chicago. New York will literally be there whenever I want to go there."
Yeah, yeah.
And I
So,
visited many times. It's a great time.
oh, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can live in New York because, like, not necessarily because of the speed, because the city is so compact, and I think the compactness of the city is what makes me really anxious.
I completely agree with you. Like I like that Chicago is as wide as it is, and the buildings are farther apart, and there's space between them, and there's alleys and all that stuff. And like that really is when I went to every time I go to visit, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm here for a week. Let's like I can jump into the environment and live it, and it's fun
Yeah,
while I'm there for a week. But like anything longer than that, I don't know.
yeah,
How long term that could be for me, sustainability wise,
yeah, yeah. And also,
I like
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go I was just gonna say I like to like
Yeah.
sit back and relax for a little bit sometimes.
Oh my god. Yeah, completely. And also, after a while, like, there's only so much I can take, like all the trash being thrown out at the front of the curb.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't. I can't stand it. What are you? How are you a world-class city with trash on the streets, babe? What? What is this?
It's like,
It's insanity.
we gotta pack in as much real estate as possible.
Oh
Sorry, sorry. All right, but speaking of, so you go to
yeah.
school and then you
Yeah.
decide to make the switch to getting ingratiated in the arts scene here. So how does that get going? Do you like throw yourself in immediately to like musical theater or opera, like after you get out of school?
So in school, I immediately like change all my courses to like music theory,
Mm,
oral skills, voice lessons, group piano, like all the music courses that I need. And immediately once I'm like I'm done with medicine and science, music.
mm,
Um, because I also like did a bunch of gen eds already, so I jumped hard into all the music courses. I joined up with the improv team at the community college I was at,
mm.
did the plays. I did Hairspray. I did Hairspray. I was in the ensemble. The one that changed my life was Rocky Horror. Um, because I went in that and all of my friends were like, "You're queer, you're gonna be Frankenfurter and it's gonna be fine." And I was like, okay, cool. And it's a style of singing I can do,
Mm.
fantastic. And this was like after the Raul Esparza cast came out. So like listening to Raul Esparza go doing Riff Raff drove me insane. It was so cool. But like I didn't have the voice to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I went in for this show thinking I'm gonna be Frank, and I got cast as Riff Raff, which I'm not upset about. It was such a great experience because it completely altered my voice in a way that I had never experienced or used, and like broadened my horizons on theater, and what
Mm.
made me jump into musical theater full head first, deep end, let's go. Because I got cast as Riff Raff, who is a high belting, high riffing, like, and not just like high belting, like skrelting. He's up here the whole
Mm.
time, doing stuff. And it really was like, whoa, my voice can do these things. This is a thing the voice can do. How do I do this right? How do I make sure it's good? Also, the acting to be something that I completely like wasn't even thinking about, and like really adjusted, so reframed everything in my brain about how I who I was as an artist
Mm.
um in the world of theater, because I think it all falls the whole world is a theater. All the world's a stage and all that.
Mm.
And so then I started doing musical theater. And it's been great. I went to school in Michigan for a little bit,
Yeah.
at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. Go for the gold. I think that's their slogan still. um,
No, I have no idea, but I'll go with you on it.
I don't know. But went there for a while, had some really great voice teachers, and acting faculty over there, and then came back to Chicago and jumped into the storefront scene. And have been here ever since. And I don't plan on leaving anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
also something it feels like that you've done immediately was that like you jumped into producing very quickly.
I
Um,
really did.
yeah. So like, how did that start? Did that start with Blank Theater Company? Was that the first one?
No, the first time I jumped into producing was with a company that doesn't exist anymore called Artists Giving Back.
Okay.
They were the first show I did when I got back to Chicago. They did a World's AIDS Day production of Rent.
Ah.
And so that was my first audition back from school. Got in, that was the understudy Benny. Um, and we did it at the Athenaeum. We raised like 11 grand for the AIDS Foundation of
Oh my
Chicago.
God.
Yeah. And I was just an actor in the production at that point. And then afterwards, there was still like money left over that we didn't donate because they wanted to like fund a company. So me and a couple friends reached out to them again and we're like, hey, what if we did like a monthly cabaret series and partnered with like a charity of the month?
Mhm.
And did like a cabaret every month with a different charity, and like we could do that as a way to like feature new Chicago talent, and like raise a status of some charity and raise some money for a charity.
Okay.
So we called it AGB Sings, and it was um the company was me, Jessica Van, Britton Shutters, Peter Ruger, uh Colton, I don't remember his last name, and Justin, I don't remember his last name either. But like that was the group of us that did that. Oh, Megan Shanahan was a part of it for a bit,
Mhm.
in casting, and we for about 2.5 years produced cabarets once a month at Mary's Addict. R.I.P. Mary's Addict. I love you.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, Mary's Addict, babe.
Ah, I miss it.
Miss it so much. And that's I learned so much about how the businessy side of theater works in Mary's Addict.
Hmm.
Because like I was the person who like first approached them, was like, hey, can we do this? And like I convinced them to let us use the space for free. We got it
Hmm.
donated to us for this cabaret. Because it was also going to be, all the proceeds were donated to the different charities that we worked with.
Hmm.
So that's something that was really cool and really awesome of them to do. But like I still had to go through that contract and like make sure everything was all squared away and done correctly. I still had to like make sure we worked with our team to like, hey, what charities are we going to work with for the year so we can plan ahead, um, and get this all correct and like planned and cast and like marketing and everything set correctly. Because I was just like a producer for that series. And so that's where I started off with doing different production work
Hmm.
in the theater world. I also took stage management in school because I just was like, I'm going to be an actor who knows how to do all the other things as well. Because I know so many out here who are like, what does a stage manager actually do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What is lighting design
Hmm.
besides, and I'm like, what, how do you not know how all of these things integrate? So I made sure to learn how all that integrated, and then came out and was like, I'm gonna perform but also produce. So AGB was a really cool time, and a really great testing ground for like a lot of really cool ideas. And what ended up being me coming into Trans Voices Cabaret, um, as the AD here, is when Lars Ebsworth, who started it, was going away to grad school. They were like, I need somebody to take over and like
Hmm.
run TBC in Chicago. And I was like, hey, I'll absolutely do that. I have the skill set from AGB, and also like Lars and I had worked together on a few different IGBs or TBCs in different capacities. Like I was a performer for some, but like I also helped with some of the production stuff for a couple of them. Um, so then I came over here, and now I do the cabarets with TVC, which is amazing and like the most rewarding thing in the world. Like literally, it's so cool to get to create space for trans artists to get up there and just be like, hey, you could also cast me as this, and I would be fantastic. And they get up there and like shine, and it's so freaking cool.
Yeah, I love that. Now, there's something that I caught on your Twitter that I wanted to share that I felt like would just kind of be an important thing that I feel like would
Yeah.
feed the rest of this conversation. So there's a tweet that you
Which
quote
one?
tweeted. Anytime a trans person is cast in a show, I consider that a personal win because a win for one of us is a win for us all. And
Yeah.
then you mentioned the reason why I run a trans voice cabaret Chicago is that so that trans people can see that it's possible for us to be cast in anything and how great we are at storytelling. Right now, there are two
Yeah.
TVC alumni that are Jeff winners. Other nominees, training new producers, so we can also be running the meetings, hire more trans folks. Let us know let us show you how beautiful the world could be.
Yeah.
So, um, I think that's for me. It feels like just even with what you were doing before Trans Voice
Hmm.
Cabaret, is that like for you, it seems like showcasing has always been a priority for you. So I'm kind of curious as to why that's always been. It feels like top of mind for you.
It's always been kind of top of mind for me because like there's just so many folks out here who don't get the opportunities that are presented to those of us who have privilege to like do it, you know? Like I'm a kid who grew up in Humboldt Park who like does
Mm.
musical theater now. Like those things don't compute for a lot of folks.
Hmm.
Of like, oh, you're a queer Black and Latinx human and you do musical theater? What? How
Mm.
does that work? How
Yeah.
are you not just like working at a retail store somewhere? Not that that's any less than, but like, how are you in this? And it's really been something that's important to me of like, hey, yeah, there's tons of great talent that is ignored in Humble Park, and in all over the city, just because people don't want to give them the chance.
Yeah.
And that's really how I feel right now with like the trans voices and trans communities. Like, we just need to be given a chance, and you'll see how beautiful we shine. Like
Yeah.
back to back alumni for TVC winning Jeff Awards.
Hmm.
Because LJ Bolin won one, and then Parker Guidry won one. And like, let's
Yeah.
keep this train
Parker's so
going.
good.
Parker's so good. Oh my
Like
God, Parker's so good.
I've never seen them perform until SpongeBob, and like that just like knocked my socks off.
Parker performed Not Getting Married Today at the last TVC that they performed at.
Mm.
And I have seen so many people perform this song because it is I love company. Like I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna produce a concert version of the show for my 35th birthday next year. And like I'm not even joking. I'm probably gonna do that. And I know this song so well, and I've seen like a handful of people live do it where I understood all the words. And Parker hit every single word, and it was flawless. And I was like, oh my God, so good. Parker, one of the greatest out there. But like there are other great trans art actors that are out here
Yes.
that
Yes.
deserve the spotlight as well, that we're making sure they get seen. And that's so cool. And like making sure that everybody gets a chance to eat is my real big like what really guides my soul is like me eating doesn't prevent you from eating. Like we don't have to hoard the resources. We can share them with all the people, and help make sure we all do good. A rising tide raises all ships, or supposed to.
Yes.
Um,
And also that integration in terms
yeah,
of integrating artists of color, in terms of integrating
yeah,
genderqueer and trans artists,
yeah,
like if you do it the right way with a certain level of mindfulness and thoughtfulness, it's only going to
all
make
right,
everybody in the room better.
better,
It's going to make everybody better because we become more mindful people.
exactly.
I mean, something that like I've thought about too is like how many queer friends that I've made like throughout Chicago theater during my tenure
Hmm.
here. Like most of my friends here are queer.
Yeah,
And like how even just the mindset of like how I think about love expression like revolutionized me. I
hmm,
feel like just because it like for me when you grow up in like heteronormative households and like you're taught certain patriarchal ideas about love and all this other
oh
stuff,
yeah,
you know, um, you only think in particular boxes. And I feel like
hmm,
theater has worked in a particular way. I feel like Chicago theater has worked in a
yep,
very particular way for a very, very long time.
hmm,
And something that you said earlier about like why haven't you worked in retail? Why are you in the space? That's telling on themselves.
yeah.
That's telling on themselves of saying, "Oh, we've never actually thought to make a space for you.
Yeah.
So why
Well,
are
it's
you
also,
here?"
yeah, it's also like every time I walk into a room, people expect me to sound a very specific way, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was Audra McDonald who said this in an interview a while ago. When they expect her to walk into a room, they expect her to be Riff a lot of Jones and to run in there and riff all over the place and belt. And that's what she's supposed to
Mhm.
do because she's a black actor who sings.
Yeah.
And like, hey, we can do a lot more than that. Like, I studied opera first. Like I literally have arias in my bag ready to go at all times that are
Mhm.
like polished and professional and like have sung them with symphonies. So like don't expect me to just come in and belt and riff. Expand your mind on what we can do. And like
Mhm.
that's just with the black community, you know?
Yeah.
Like the trans community, people see us, and like a lot of what I've heard from some people is like, well, what do we do? How do we cast somebody who's non-binary in a show and not offend them? I don't know. Do you ask them a question? What? How dare you ask an actor a question and get their opinion?
Yeah.
And like, if you're like thinking of like casting a non-binary person in like a binary role, just like ask them, hey, are you fine with playing roles that are on the binary? And most of the time we're gonna say yes, because we are great storytellers, and that is what we do, is we tell the stories that are there for us to tell. And if this story is written with this character being on the binary, we can play it on the binary, but it's also going to be informed by our transness,
Yeah,
which is going
exactly.
to enhance the whole show.
Yeah.
And like you also don't have to like just cast like black people in the black role. You don't have to cast trans kids in the trans queer roles. Like we can be more than just that, you know? And that's so important to me right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I feel like you see it in the state of how people put out casting calls.
Hmm.
You know, how much thought have they put into something? Whether it's like they say whether it's like male or female, male or female identifying, whether
Yeah,
they actually put markers in there that actually explicitly say like we'd also look for trans and non-binary people in these
exactly.
roles as well, or even just conversations that we have about like let's say when we talk about like color blind versus color conscious
Conscious.
casting.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, you know, I think something that I've talked about with friends of mine who are white casting directors and white producers is when they, because I'm sure you've heard this,
Mhm.
is oh, we really tried to like find black actors for this. We tried to find or brown actors for this.
Really
We
trying to
just
do this.
we couldn't find them. We couldn't find them. And something that I would always mention is, number one, is your company all white? Because that's going to matter.
Right.
But also something that I thought about was like, do you realize, like, let's say when you put out a casting call, right? Is okay, let's say you say open ethnicity or whatever it is. Do you realize that sometimes certain things are a marker for saying you technically are looking for this, but it's probably most likely going to be
Yeah,
white? How does your
exactly
casting,
that.
yeah, how does your casting call inform how you're considering bodies in space?
And also, like, what has been your history of casting in your company? Because if you put out casting calls constantly saying that we're open to casting actors of different genders, actors of different races. We don't care for any of the roles, submit for whatever, but you always cast roles on the binary and you always cast white actors in the roles.
Mm-hmm.
How often, like, what is the point of us wasting our time to come in if, like, that's how you're casting every time you cast? If you're going to cast the same handful of actors, you're looking for the same type. Like a friend of mine who works in music direction recently was like, oh yeah, we were talking about a show and they were like, oh, we want a Jeremy Jordan type, but if we can't get a Jeremy Jordan type, we'll go for a pick another big name actor type. And I'm like, why are you looking for that type? Why are you not just looking for somebody who can tell the story in your community and tell it well?
Yeah, yeah, and it speaks to your utter lack of imagination
Right.
of possibility, which is weird because it's like we're in art.
Right.
The
Like this
point
is
is to open up your imagination to possibility.
literally this is all make believe, babe.
Yes, yes, literally. So, something that I was curious with you when it comes to um, your opinion on something is the state of musical theater and trans musical performers having an opportunity to showcase in musical theater, especially like
Mhm.
in bigger houses.
Yeah.
What do you consider to kind of be the state of that in terms of what kind of progress or lack of progress we have made? Because I do find that like I feel like musical theater tends to be a little bit more rigid than the
I don't
regular theater
disagree with you
world.
on that. I do think musical theater tends to be a little bit more rigid, and we're seeing some of that loosening up recently, right? Like we have
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak specifically to like the Chicago storefront scene. We have different theater companies that are starting to feature trans actors in
Mm-hmm.
their shows, you know. Theo Ubekwe has done it a few times. We
Yeah.
had the full trans cast over at Boho Theater. We have all the queer casting that they do over
Mm-hmm.
at Co-Candy, and like they do it intentionally, and you can see that every time they do this.
Mm-hmm.
And Like that's stuff that's happening that is making progress and doing things and like just casting people to who are going to tell the story effectively and do it beautifully.
Hmm.
And so I think there is some progress happening there. I do think there's still some rigidity. You are always going to have some of the like old guard, as I like to call them,
Oh
who are
yeah.
like, no, the key is written like this and it must stay like this. And the author
Hmm.
specifically intended this. And so that is what I don't care. You do, we do Shakespeare all different types of ways. But because this person is alive right now, we can't do their show a different way.
And also, who's to say that like the mostly queer people who wrote these shows
Right.
would have a fucking problem with it?
Exactly. Like, and like that other thing was like, I am a firm believer in like you can always ask, and the worst somebody's gonna say is no.
Hmm.
So like whenever I'm talking to anybody about like any shows they're looking at doing, and I'm like, okay, cool. So what are your thoughts on putting trans people in that? Well, how would that work? Okay, I mean, pick a musical. Legally Blonde. Let's pick Legally Blonde. How are trans people work in Legally Blonde? I got
Hmm.
like 6 different concepts for how trans people can work in Legally Blonde and why it works. Because Elle Woods being a black trans woman would be phenomenal. Because we ignore black trans women all the time and don't listen to what they say or value anything they have to say, even though they are usually some of the smartest people in the room.
Hmm.
Tell me that that wouldn't make sense. Tell me that Sirius, Warner singing that song to Elle and thinking every time he's saying less of a Marilyn, more of a Jackie, you now have you give the actor the challenge of, okay, so Jackie is a cis woman, Marilyn is a trans woman in this scenario, so now play it like that. Like you have to follow what society is telling you with following the and like look at how much more creative and how much more fun that is. And that's just
Yeah.
one take on how you can spin that show. Like look at how Little Shop had MJ Rodriguez play Audrey. It was beautiful and stunning and lovely, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like just how that same song, same words, same story, and it just gets enhanced. And there's so much more we can add to the stories that we have out here if we let everyone else tell them, instead of telling the same handful of stories with the same handful of people.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, how do we? It's like the way you imagine that too is like, how do you consider how the micro finish like it kind of works with the macro of it, right?
Right.
Like you bring up Elle Woods, and I think like certain things to consider that is like, okay, like in terms of like how this works in a different body is like what happens with Elle Woods, right? Elle Woods
Mhm.
probably is the hardest worker and the smartest person in the fucking room, but what
Right.
happens? Everybody underestimates her because of her aesthetic
Exactly.
consistently.
Consistently. Every time.
Yeah, and
There's
not
literally a
yeah.
line where he goes, I'd rather see no more Legally Blonde and
Mm.
something corduroy to make fun of how Elle is dressed and or Elle's hair and Emmett's outfit. Like, yeah.
Yeah. There's so much you can play with in terms of just
Hmm.
the projection of a character, and
Hmm.
then that could affect how you direct the entire thing and conceptualize an entire project.
Exactly. If you just like take the small time to think of how can I twist this just a little bit? Like I can pick a musical, I got you, and I can tell you how it works with a trans cast or how it works
Hmm.
with a color conscious cast or like without like so many different things. There's so many ways we can tell these stories that are different and cool and interesting, but we have so many people who want to tell it the same way all the time. And like, yeah, we'll put a different set on it, but like, I'm still not going to change anything else.
Oh my god, yeah. So the one show I do want to ask you about that on that regard is like you brought up the boho show, so the Tick Tick
Yeah,
Boom. Sadly, I missed that one, and I heard it was a fucking amazing show. I heard
it
it
was
was
so good.
great. I heard it was
It was
so
so good.
good. But
I'm a little biased, but
yeah, I mean, I'm sure like
it
there's a
was
lot
so
of
good.
it that felt super personal,
Oh
but
God, it
like,
was so good. Yeah.
yeah, but like for you, was there something kind of like revelatory about actually being a part of a show that actually fully realized it in the way that you're describing?
Um, there's so much that you don't have to talk about when you have a fully trans cast. We just get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are different parts of like the transitioning and like different things that we just understand within each other. It's like if you've never been in a room full of Latina actors with a Latina director, or like if you've never been in a room full of black actors with a black director, and like we just have different like cultural things that we understand with each other, that make it so we can tell the story in this different way that we want to do it and make it effective and beautiful and like successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes the language and of rehearsal so much easier and faster.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine too, there has to be something about that where it's just like, thank God, I feel like I'm coming home.
Right. And like you don't have to like put up the mask of like, okay, or like always be concerned about like, okay, I'm gonna get misgendered in this room because because I'm the only person who uses they them pronouns in this room, and everyone else is on the binary as they are assumed if you look at them. So half the time I'm gonna be in this room, I'm gonna get misgendered. Cool, I'll just deal with it. And like there's so much of that you don't have to deal with when it
Mm-hmm.
is a room that somebody has thought about that, like
Yeah.
somebody has put the effort in and made the conscious choice of like thinking about like how could I make this a better space for everyone to be in.
Yeah. And nobody uses the term preferred pronouns.
Yeah, that part. um Honestly, if I see preferred pronouns on your audition sheet, I'm gonna be like, oh, thank you so much for your time, have a good day, bye. It's not my preferred pronoun. Those are my pronouns. They are not a preference. This
It's
is
like,
not pizza.
yeah, no, this is my existence.
Like this is literally my existence, babe. um yeah.
Yeah. There's there was a quote I was kind of stewing on for a bit. That I
Mhm,
kind of like. I was kind of curious if it was something that spoke to you, but someone that I follow on Instagram, Alok Menon.
mhm,
Um, they're a pretty like well known like cultural critic,
yeah.
and they brought up something about like being non-binary, about why patriarchy resists it, and like I'm gonna do a very poor paraphrasing of it,
Mhm,
but they're just like the thing about accepting queer and trans people into your life is to then completely open up your mind about what is and isn't gender, and to accept that into your heart and into your being is too much for a lot of people to handle.
mhm,
And that's something that I've thought about a lot, where it's just like when something becomes your identity
right.
and you're introduced to things that have been grilled in you for such a long time, and the massive resistance that takes place within you, and you haven't been taught to have imagination and to have perspective and to see that like there's actually a different, like there's different ways of living that we could all like live in a way that's cohesive, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing about that and like what I get from that is like it gives, if you fully accept that, you also have to give yourself the grace and like space to play around with what your own identity is and
Mm-hmm.
what your own gender expression is. Like
Mm-hmm.
I definitely grew up with
Mm-hmm.
people telling me like this is a man's job, that's a woman's job. You got to do this, this and this like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm like, "Eh, whatever." Um that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to cook and clean their house, not just the women.
Yeah.
Um, like everyone needs to know how to cook food. Otherwise, you're gonna be eating a lot of PB&Js. And so like that's what I get out of it is that you have to be open and willing to let yourself also explore.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are afraid to do that because a lot of people
Yeah.
like the rules. They like the little boxes that they're in because they're comfortable and it doesn't scare them. And there's nothing scary around anything. And they know exactly when they're going to get up in the morning and they're going to brush their teeth like this and they're going to go eat this sandwich and they're going to
Mm-hmm.
do everything exactly like that. And to throw out there the possibility of, hey, you can actually do that out of order and in whatever order you feel like doing. You don't have to do it the way you've always done. You don't have
Yeah.
to. You also, um, person who is cis male can color your nails and wear makeup if you want to like
Yeah.
look different and express different. You can flat iron your hair or throw it in a bun and do whatever you want. Like that isn't exclusive to the other genders.
Yeah.
It is all like to allow yourself to explore that whole world. It can be overwhelming for some people
Oh
to
yeah.
realize like, oh my God, there is actually infinite possibility.
Oh my god. Yeah, I think for me, so like someone to me that's always spoke to me in that way is Terrell Alvin McCraney. Like, I think it really hit me when I saw Choir Boy,
Mhm.
and there was a moment where I just went. It was just kind of like like the same thing when like I like rewatch Moonlight over and over and over again. But like, there was this beautiful moment where the main character, like, he just got assaulted, but like he's with his straight roommate, and his straight roommate was just like, come to bed, and he's like, no, come here, and like he like calls him over, and he hugs him, and he just spoons him
Mhm.
like as his roommate and as his friend, and the roommate thanks him, and he just goes, it's what you give, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
There was something about that, witnessing that, where it was just like the way that Terrell comments about, it feels like there's a continual thread in a lot of his work about the healing of male affection.
Yeah, because that's I think the big issue with a lot of the toxic masculinity is that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who are raised male don't get allowed to express emotions ever. Like
Yeah.
the amount of times I was told as a child, "Oh, stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry." Or like you're a man, toughen up.
Mm-hmm.
Stop crying about this. Like literally was told to rub some dirt in it once. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "What?" Like walk it off. Like, no, babe, I just got hit in the middle of the back with a baseball. Like, yeah, I'm gonna cry for a little bit and like take some time to recover.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I just need a hug today. Like, it's just been a bad day.
Yes.
I just need a hug.
Yes.
And to just like, so many men are taught that the only people who are allowed to give you hugs are like your romantic partner and like the women in your life. That if anybody
Yeah.
else is hugging you, if any other man hugs you, that's gay,
Mm-hmm.
that's queer. Like, what do you mean? That's just
Yeah.
another form of affection that people can give, and it isn't sexual. Like, you don't have to sexualize everything, wild as that may seem.
Yeah. We can literally hold each other's hand, and there doesn't need to be any sort of sexual or romantic connotation with it. It's just us
Exactly.
saying,
It's just
I'm here showing up for you.
exactly just a way to be there for one another. And like, there's so much of like that lacking in like just male bonding is just missing in the like cis het world of like how things are, how they just interact with the world. And I'm always just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, just let your friend give you a hug.
Yeah. It's fucking fine. It's fucking fine.
It's gonna actually feel
There's
really
nothing,
good,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Just like, let go. Let go.
Well, let it happen. Let it go.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just need to cry.
Yes.
Let it happen, or just yell or something. Like
Yeah.
let the big emotion happen.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's stuff like that. It's the resistance to that. Where
yeah.
to me, it's that consistent reminder of the reason why we then resist it. It's just like, it's like the Judith Butler quote is true. Gender is performance.
Oh yes,
Like the whole
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. Like I am non-binary and I tend to dress in what is more masculine presenting things just because
Mm-hmm.
like it is a performance and it is safer in most public places for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um the times I experiment with my clothes and like dress in more feminine
Mm-hmm.
ideals or like dress in things that just make me feel more comfortable are like specific events that I
Yeah.
know are going to be safer.
Yeah.
And are catered specifically for my community and people that love me and love what I'm presenting and to the world. Because it is so unsafe out there. And like that's something I have to think about every day I walk out the door.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what it was. I read it was in like eighth grade. Some teachers made us read a story and it was literally about a black man who was like, yeah, I have a superpower. Walking down the street, I can change everything by just walking down the street. This person's going to cross the street. That person's going to cross the street. I can do anything. That's just my superpower because I'm a black man in this world. And like I had a conversation with a friend about code
Mm-hmm.
switching the other day because
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "Oh my God, you code switch so effectively on the phone when you're at work." And I was like, I'm an actor, first of all. Like I'm
Yeah.
trained in like how to like have my customer service voice. Hi, thank you for calling. This is Larry.
Mm-hmm.
How can I assist you today? Um, and I know how to pick up and drop that like a hat.
Yeah.
Like it's so easy. But like everyone does it. Everyone just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't realize they're doing it until somebody's like, "Hey, that joke you just made is not something you'd make in this company, but because this person's here, you made that joke." what? Yeah,
Hmm.
the person I know
Yeah.
would never say that. But you two joke in that weird way. And so now you made that joke and you are laughing uncomfortably now. So it's like, what do you, until somebody calls out the code switch, a lot of people don't notice.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
so,
like,
yeah.
I imagine there's probably certain jokes you cannot make when you're in a PWI, and there's
Hmm.
probably certain ways that you have to modulate your talking
Oh,
because
yeah.
in a lot of especially corporate white spaces, their
Hmm.
inability to have any sort of real talk.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. One of
Mm.
my favorite things that's ever happened to me in a code switching moment is my friend Joel plays power soccer. And
Power
it's
soccer.
soccer. It's soccer for folks who use power wheelchairs.
Oh,
It
okay,
is
okay, okay, okay.
so freaking cool. They like are in little faster chairs with guards in the front, and there's a giant like beach ball, soccer ball. It's actually a
Mm.
soccer ball, so it stays on the ground, doesn't fly everywhere. And they play soccer, and it's in gymnasiums, and it's so freaking cool. If you get a chance, go watch it.
Mm.
The team in Chicago is called Glassa. I think they were national champs a couple years ago.
Mm.
But anyway, we were going to a tournament, and it was me, his father, and his brother, and him. And so we were stopped at some gas station in Indiana. And says, when I came back, when I was walking back to the car, he goes, Larry, I have never seen you be more straight than in that moment. There was no switch to your step. You were just like the most swaggery, like leading with the hips dude. What? And I was like, babe, I walked into the store and it said Trump 2016. So I had to change everything about who I am. He was like,
Oh my
oh,
god.
yeah. And I was like, yeah, babe, that's how this works.
Yep. Hands
um,
are in the pocket because they're not going to see my nails.
right. Like you don't get to see my nails today. And let me actually zip up this shirt because there's definitely a drag queen on the shirt that I'm under this jacket. And like a lot of folks don't think about that as something, and like it's also something that like I know trans actors do in the room when we come in for auditions for things because we don't know who all the people who are actually considering us for things are, like so
Hmm.
many times you'll go in for something and they'll be like, we're open to there's literally a text blurb that a bunch of theater companies use that some other company used once, and I think some of them are phasing it out now, but there's like a DEI statement that all of them use. It was the same one every time of like, we understand that the characters are written like this, but we want to extend an audition to everyone. So if you are interested in this role, please audition or submit for it, and we will see you for it. And I'm like, okay, cool, but like you, and you have never cast anybody who isn't easily identifiable on the binary in a role. Um,
Yep.
I have heard you talk about how you aren't going to cast somebody who doesn't fit this specific aesthetic before. So, like, yeah, actors are going to walk in and do a little code switchy to be a little more. I'm going to draw my voice a little more in this room because I know they want a manly man in their
Hmm.
ensemble. So I'm going to drop my voice and like walk a little different because they need to see that I can do that. Otherwise, they're not going to actually consider me at all. Um, and like those are conversations that I've had with other trans actors, or like
Hmm.
you will like, hi, thank you so much for calling me in. I'm gonna film this and I'm gonna sing it beautifully, I'm gonna act it beautifully, and I'm gonna give you all these really cool choices that nobody else is gonna give you, and you're gonna go, huh, but what can we do with them in this show?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll keep them on the yes pile until we can, and then we'll figure out what we can do with them later, and then we get forgotten about. Um,
Hmm. Yeah. No, there's I've talked to some trans actors when they even mentioned like even times when they've asked for trans actors, it's
yeah.
literally just the call for any trans person like
Hmm.
across the board because they
Yeah.
haven't even imagined like specifically what kind of person that they were. They're like, oh, we just know that the person is trans. So it's just
Okay.
like this is the one time where they see like every trans person in Chicago.
Exactly. And like, really, you this is not a trans world for all of us.
Hmm.
And like that's another thing of like that happens all the time of like
Yeah.
we're just looking for general trans. Like
Yes.
there is so many different ways that exist. Like what type of person are you looking for?
Hmm.
be more specific in what you're looking for in your casting call. And also be honest about how you're gonna cast your show. Like if you aren't going to cast
Mm-hmm.
any trans folks, or you aren't really considering trans folks, is you have to like think about that ahead of time. You can't just be like, today we're casting all trans folks in the show today. Okay, cool. Like not all trans folk can sing Elle Woods. You're gonna have to like look into changing keys,
Mm-hmm.
and making the music work for these folks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't put any thought into it, like don't tell me that you're interested in casting me as Elphaba in Wicked as a trans person when you know that I can't belt an E5 or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. Like, and that you're not going to make any adjustments. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing of like, that's the other thing of like, my other big thing is accessibility within our industry is so low. So many theaters that like my friend Joel, who does the power soccer, also is an
Mm-hmm.
actor. He's fantastic. Got a great voice. So many theaters he
Mm-hmm.
can't work at, because they have stairs, and nobody thought about that.
Yeah.
Like he had a
Nah.
big
Yeah.
audition at the Vagabond space, and the elevator in the front isn't actually big enough to get somebody in a wheelchair, and also there are stairs in the front. You have to go in through the back entrance, through the dock that's there, and take the freight elevator. um Nobody thought about that before his audition. They were just like, oh, there's an elevator in the front, that's fine. And so him and I get there and we're like, there are 4 stairs right here.
I've
Oh,
that's not the first time I've heard about some shit like this. Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah.
let's figure out how we can. Well, we could probably get some wood to like put on the stairs. Yeah, that's gonna be way too steep of an angle. Is there another way to get to the elevator? Oh, let's figure out what that is. And it's like, come on. Like, starting off with accessibility for everyone just makes it better for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes. Yes. And I mean, consideration is always in your actions, not in your bullshit statements.
exactly. Exactly. Like we like part of the reason TVC has bounced around to different venues is because of different pricing and scheduling and stuff, but also like to make sure we are more accessible to folks. Like
Yeah.
like we can't be off of a train station that doesn't have a elevator or an escalator for some folks. Or like we can't be up a walk-up theater that is on like a second or third floor that doesn't have an elevator. We have to figure out other ways to make it accessible. That's why TVC's also gone into streaming the shows, is
Yeah.
to make it more accessible for folks who like can't come out of their house,
Yeah.
for whatever the reason is. Hey, here's a way for you to also enjoy art. Um, and you're not going to get the same experience as somebody who's in the room. Um, but like we're making it as best as we can to get whatever we can for everyone who can do that. And like it doesn't just adding a little more thought to all your processes of like how we can make this more accessible for folks.
Yes.
Because like, and also accessibility isn't just like, oh, there's a ramp here. Sometimes it's we print the score in a bigger size for somebody so they can read it easier.
Yeah.
Like it changes. Sometimes it's just like, hey, we're gonna have some fidget toys at rehearsal so you can like have that for you if you need it in a particularly intense scene or something for now. Like ask your cast what would help their lives be better and more accessible to the art form. Um,
Yes.
it's really important because it makes better art. If we
Yeah.
have the resources we need, it makes it easier for us to produce the art.
Yeah. This is something that I run into all the time when it comes to communication everywhere I go. In so many different spaces, sometimes even in personal relationships. Not asking questions will
Yeah,
always lead to unintentional harm.
exactly.
Always. Because you are not working from a place of mindfulness if you are not asking. Because then you're working off of your what you consider to be best practices, or worse, your assumptions.
Yeah.
So if you just ask the questions, so much unintended harm can be avoided if you just
Mhm.
pivot to good faith questions.
Exactly. And that's a big part. Excuse me. A good faith question. don't come out of left field with the
Mm-hmm.
dumbass question of like, so your pronouns are they them? What does that mean? You're not a boy or a girl? What does that mean? Like, come on. But like, you know what I mean? Like, we all know what you mean by good faith questions, and you have to like come at it with sincerity of
Yeah.
like how you are coming to this with like genuine curiosity, which is how we
Yes.
should be approaching most things, is with like genuine curiosity of like how we can make this a better space for all of us. And like that's like, ask the question, babes. No one's going to get mad at you for asking the question. And if they do, well, then that's something they should work on.
Yeah.
Because we only learn more by asking questions.
Exactly. So with all that, with all those shortcomings and all these other things that you mentioned, how does that, like with you as a casting director, how does
Mhm.
that inform not only how you come into the room, but also how you set a tone for the room?
I mean, for me, with the casting at Genderfucked Productions right now, my big thing is we make sure we ask questions. We ask open-ended questions on our audition form to get more information from our actors and people who are submitting to us on what they
Mm-hmm.
need and what like how we can best practice, what are the best ways we can support them in the shows that we're
Mm-hmm.
doing and working on. So specifically like with TVC, I have a question on there that's just like, hey, do you have any accessibility needs? Like what are they?
Mm-hmm.
Let us know. And like our pronoun select isn't a pronoun selector. It is a open question of like, what are your pronouns?
Mm-hmm.
Write them in.
Yeah.
Um, to like make sure that is easier and more accessible to folks. Depending on the show that we're casting on and how it works out, we might not make you have to use a Google account and log in to submit for a show. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you're like adding different things to Google Form, you have to log in and all that stuff. But like
Yeah.
we're looking at ways to further expand that and like looking at like when we do, because we're doing TVC right now, and then we've done a reading, and we're going to do some more readings of like
Mm-hmm.
beautiful trans plays. So come see our readings. Our reading
Yes.
series is called It's Alive.
Mm-hmm.
um and we just had our first reading like a month ago, but like I made sure to reach out to folks for that and like really work around time constraints and stuff to like figure out like, hey, what are the best times that we can make this work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
For readings you can do like, hey, a virtual rehearsal might work out easier for you today. So like let's figure out how to do that and like really just figure out what everybody's um needs are, and then in the room with all the folks making the decisions, it's very much a like, hey, understand that like there are different levels of performer that are going to be here, and for video submissions especially, like we are watching the full audition. We're not watching 5 seconds and being like, oh, whatever, I don't watch this. No, we're watching the full audition because that's the same thing we would do in the room.
Yeah.
So you watch the whole thing. um we asked for 2 minutes, we're going to get 2 minutes from everyone, so we're going to watch 20 hours. That's,
Yeah.
we haven't had that many yet, but someday.
It
um
shall happen.
it shall happen. But we're gonna make sure everyone is there and is being respectful of everyone else's time and like energy that's in the room, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We do have like sometimes have asynchronous meetings and stuff like that to figure out how to do things, or like we have to be able to accommodate other people, you know.
Yeah.
And like sometimes like you do have deadlines. Like I am a stickler for a deadline. I will throw a 48-hour deadline on everything all the time. Because otherwise we don't get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise people will just procrastinate and like get it in at
Yeah.
the last minute. And it's like, no, we're working with the Steppenwolf. We need this answer today. Um, we're working and like, and again, it's not just like when we're working with the Steppenwolf, like any other species or anybody you're working with, you treat them with the same respect and make sure you are being like honoring their time and energy that is being
Yeah.
spent on this, because that is important for everyone to get along and like just be successful and do the things that we want to do.
Yeah. So on that note, what has that meant for you, for Trans Voice Cabaret, for Genderfuck Productions, to have the opportunity to do something like the Lookout series? Because I mean, like it feels like that's its own, that is a different beast, but it's also something where it's just like to have something that potentially has much more institutional support.
Yeah, so it's been really cool. The Lookout series is fantastic. This is the second time TBC is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
TBC, first time since I've been running TBC. Lars did one in the Lookout series a little
Mm-hmm.
while ago, a couple years ago. But it's really cool. We have gotten a lot of really great response from different people auditioning. We're cast. We will have that list out probably on Friday, actually. Um,
Yes.
next Saturday at the latest, probably. I can say
Mm-hmm.
that now. I run the thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really cool to have that space and like have the collaborators that want to work in that space. Because of the Steppenwolf name, you know?
Yeah.
Not saying that everybody is just like, oh, it's Steppenwolf, we have to do the thing, but like it adds a little more gravity to it because it has the institutional support behind it for us. And it's been really great to have that. We also have a couple other projects lined up. Like we will be performing for Midsummer Fest, and we'll be doing a couple other projects later that I don't know if we can
Mm-hmm.
announce yet. Um, but like we have a few projects lined up at different spaces to get the voices out there and make it so there's more space. And it's really cool because it like having the Steppenwolf back us with the Lookout series, like we can charge a little bit more for ticket prices and raise stipends a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's also a really important thing of like a lot of cabarets that run in the city for different companies don't pay their actors for that. It's a fundraiser for the company every time.
Mm-hmm.
So the actors don't get paid. And I'm like,
Or, but you know what you get? You get tips.
you
You
get
can get a tip.
you can get a tip. We're gonna feed you. Um
In cheese.
in cheese. Not the meal that we're giving the guests that are here, and you get the cheese. Um, but it's been important to me that every time we do a TVC that we pay our actors and like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they refuse payment. Literally, we've had actors in the past be like, no, you can keep it for the
What?
organization and like pay somebody else next time. And I'm
Mm.
always super grateful for that. And like, it's not something that I've ever asked an actor to do either. It's like, hey, this is your stipend. Like, you were contracted and employed for learning two songs, doing two rehearsals, and coming to this performance.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your money. That's yours. Do with it as you will. But like that's also a really cool thing is like the alumni of TBC are so supportive of TBC and like
Yeah.
want to be helpful and want to do more every time we do anything. And they're always like, hey, how can we support? What can we do here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how can we get the word out more? And like it's also really great. Um, yeah, that's just all the cool things. Like another really big thing with me in TVC is I like mixing up alumni and new faces. So the show that we
Mm-hmm.
have at Steppenwolf, it got a lot of new faces to come out for us that we haven't used before. And like we have some folks that have submitted and have been cast that like sent in some of the best work I've ever seen them do. And like part of that probably is a little bit because of the Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
And having that name attached to it. Um, but like the other thing is we also keep everyone on file so we can go through any submissions you've ever sent in and like, hey, we need somebody for this show that fits like this other type. And that's the other thing of like the diversity of TBC is in different voices, types, skin colors, genders, all of the things. Every time. And we get
Excuse me.
like just
Are you saying that non-binary and transis is not a monolith?
what? Oh my God.
Excuse
Wow.
me. What?
Crazy thought there. We are not a monolith. Wild, I know. I know. Yes. Um, but like it is fantastic to see and like have this group of folks that's gonna come out and do the show. And honestly, everybody come see the show.
Hmm.
It's everybody who can come see the show at Steppenwolf. We can't seat all of you yet. But maybe we'll get a bigger space soon. Um, but it's gonna be a really good time. JD Caudle is our director. And love JD. Christy Childs Twilly is music directing it. And she's amazing. Like I trust that woman so much. She's so
Oh.
talented. And it's gonna be a really fantastic cast. We have a mix of alumni coming out. Tyranny Reigns is going to be our drag host for this show. Their voice is incredible. I'm performing. I have a big special announcement for everybody. Um, it's going to be a really good time.
Okay. So, what is the big special announcement
You can find out on June 1st at
on June
Steppenwolf
1st?
Theater.
Okay. Okay. Well,
You
then
have to
I
try.
guess I guess I need to make this my very first attendance to a Trans Voice Cabaret show.
Let's go. Come on
Okay.
out. It's gonna be a great time. Truly, it's gonna be really fun. We have a really lovely mix of different songs and styles that are gonna be shown there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, different types of actors and different types of voices. Like we have some of the big power belters, and then we have some of the like lighter, just beautiful voices. Not saying power belting isn't beautiful. I love power belting. All the voices are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But like the lighter, gentler voices are going to be there, and it's going to be such a great time to just enjoy and be in a room full of love and support for trans folks. Like truly, if you've never been in a room that is full of love and support for trans people, come to Trans Voices Cabaret so you can experience that once in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the amount of support all of the actors get from the audience every time we've done it, like there's never been a time where the audience has been like, we're just going to golf clap. No, it's always roaring and raging because everybody is there to support us. And everyone is doing amazing work. With TVC, we do at least 2 rehearsals with everybody, so they get like a full coaching of their song, and we work on like, hey, does this song fit your this key fit your
Mm-hmm.
voice right? No, cool. Let's spend the time to figure out what key we're going to work with for you. And then once we found it, let's work it a few times so we can make sure it fits and is like perfect for you. To showcase everything you got. Let's figure out what all the acting beats and everything in here are, and like give you some cool choices to make in the one song that you get to perform today.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone can see that you make interesting, cool choices when you're up there, and that you have your voice locked in the pocket and ready to go. Um, and truly, like every time, I'm just blown away by the talent of TVC.
Yeah.
Every time, like I'm like, I cast this, and it's still a shock to me somehow
Yeah.
that everyone's amazing.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of a rehearsal process. Sometimes there's like you have that day where sometimes you see that someone found something and you're like,
Mhm.
oh my god,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Oh yeah, and it's so cool. Like honestly, TVC has been the most rewarding thing. Like so seriously, like I love it so much,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm so excited to see where it goes and how it grows. From here, especially like with the link up with Genderfucked Productions, to have more support, like organizational support, because until TVC joined up with Genderfucked, TVC was a one-person show. Like Lars did it kind of all by themselves,
Oh my
with like assistance
god.
here and there. I
Oh
did it all by myself for the
god.
first couple of and like if you've never had to wrangle a bunch of actors to rehearsals, oh my God. It's like wrangling cats.
Yeah, I think that's
Everyone's
probably.
schedule changes every 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I've definitely reached a point where I'm like, I'm never producing again unless I really fucking love the thing, just
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. Wrangling actors is wild. And like we've learned again, like I've learned and grown while I've been running TBC. And like also the other thing is like I have made sure to teach other folks how to produce and like
Mm-hmm.
what I know and what has worked for me. And that's also the thing of like my way isn't always the right way. This is what worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have other ideas that might work for you, how's that going to work for you? Let's try that out. Let's see what it is. Cool. So that's also a really cool thing with Genderfucked is like there's a group of producers that like we all meet and share different ideas
Mm-hmm.
on how to make everything work. And we are all almost all of us are working with an associate producer, which is somebody who's like new to producing in general, so we can teach them how to do it. Um, and like make the space
Yeah.
for other people, right? Like let's make the table we're making the table bigger. We have more producers now. Here's all these trans producers who have experience. Now what is your reason for not hiring one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We proved that the talent is here. All you got to do is to just
Give us a job.
stop being lazy. Stop
Yeah,
being lazy.
stop being lazy.
Come on. Yeah, and I
Be
imagine
a
too,
little more
like
creative.
yeah, something too that I like discussing is really for any actor is learning how to find your voice in the room.
Mhm.
learning how to have autonomy and agency in the room. And it sounds like through this process, just because, a lot of this process that you're describing, it sounds to me like this is an opportunity to unlearn for the artists
Hmm.
the binary ways that they have been taught about roles and singings, and then for them to say you're allowed to deconstruct this and
Yeah,
then make it your own sandbox.
exactly. And that's something that has been, I've never actually put words to it, but it's been really cool to actually witness is like some actors come in and be like, okay, so this is a song. I can kind of sing it where it's at. And then like giving them the permission to be like, hey, if you lower that, it might be more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to try that, I'm not going to put that on you, but like this is your space, your rehearsal, you to make you shine and do whatever is best for you. So whatever you need, we are here to support that.
Yeah.
And having the actors be like, wait, yeah, let me lower that. And I'm like, great, absolutely, you're right to do that. Like, take the confidence, take the reins. You can do that. Like, don't like completely alter the melody that to it's unrecognizable, but like, absolutely do what you need to do. Speed up and slow down sections that are easier or harder for you, and like go over it over and over again on to the way you want it to sound. To like how it makes it so your acting is motivated correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And like so many people have been like, wow, that's such a great thing, like so amazing. And I'm like, yeah, like it's when you let actors, we're trained artists too, right? Like we have input and we have instincts and stuff that are like that's why you brought us into the room. So like ask us questions, let us do what you hired us to do. And if you only have one specific vision in your mind on how you want this done, um let us know that too, and
Yeah.
we can probably give you that. But like let us explore and give us this space and like encouragement and support to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And that's something that's really cool with TVC is like letting folks have that space to do that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we cast the last casting went out, it was like, hey, please describe like 3 dream roles that you have and list at least 3 songs that you would like to play, sing for the show. And then once you're cast, we sent out a list of like, here's a bunch of like categories. Please pick some songs that fit these categories that like you want to sing. Doesn't matter who or what gender originated them. If it fits for you and the story you want to tell, excuse me, let us know.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll build a show and like a showcase for you around what you've submitted.
Yeah.
And it's really cool and really fun. Like different people, like agents have come to the show and like emailed us afterwards and be like, hey, I really like this person. What is their
Mm-hmm.
contact information? Can I talk to them more? People have come to TVC and then cast folks from seeing them in shows.
Fuck yeah.
And like it's a really cool time. Like come see what we can do and how talented we are. And stop ignoring us.
Yes. Support the fucking trans talent in this fucking city.
There's so
Support
much
the
of it.
trans talent in this fucking city. All right.
Not just the ones that you think you pass on the binary, y'all. We're
Yep.
all over the place. Let's go.
Yes. All right. So last thing I'd like to discuss before we go ahead and get out of here is Hedwig. So you got
Oh
that
yeah.
coming up. I know rehearsals are going to be starting soon-ish.
Yeah, I think rehearsals
Um,
start at the end of next month or the middle of next month.
yeah. So like the things that I'm curious about is just like, what excites you about this show?
Everything about this show. Really. Um, this cast is fantastic. I'm gonna keep touting TBC. 3 of these cast members are TBC alum.
Damn.
Me, Ismail, and Crystal are all TBC
Mm-hmm.
alum. Um, which is really cool. Tyler, we will come and cast you when you are available. You weren't available for the next show. I'm so sorry. um, but and that's really cool and really exciting. And like the that just really excites me because there's so many different voices that are going to be in the room for the 2 characters that are this show. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's Hedwig and Yitzhak. That's it, and like the band. Which is going to be integrated into the show
Mm-hmm.
somehow, and I like trust however JD is going to do this. It's going to be so cool. Um, but also like in conversations that I've had with JD's also been one of the directors who's like, yeah, you're the understudy, but like you have 4 guaranteed performances, and like those are your performances. as you, Larry, the artist, and like, yeah, we're gonna tell the same story,
Hmm.
but like you're gonna tell it different. Um, it's also a really cool chance for me to like play a role that I haven't ever really done. Like I've never
Hmm.
really been in a Hedwig type role where I'm like the lead and on stage and running the show, you know?
Hmm.
So it's gonna be really fun. I've actually done it one time, it was for a play. Um, but like it's really cool to revisit this in musical theater, which is where I feel more comfortable. And also just like I could talk about this for days. The music in Hedwig is so cool, right? Like how
Yes.
it
It's
is
fucking
in different
amazing.
styles all over the place. And like getting to play with that with my voice and with Harper,
Hmm.
who's the music director, like getting to experiment with that and like how we make those sounds. What is the cool, funky technique that I'm going to use to make Hedwig's voice work for me? Um, the costumes are going to be so cool. Oh my God. I cannot wait for people to see this show.
The
It's going to
fucking
be,
wigs. I can only imagine the fucking wigs in that show.
oh baby, y'all are not prepared. I've seen like a mock-up maybe. And it's just, this is going to be such a cool experience. Especially like it's a all TGNC cast. Doing a show that like for me isn't about like Hedwig's gender. Like to me,
Hmm.
it's about their journey of self-discovery and
Yeah.
like how they learn to love themselves in the whole being that they are without needing outside validation. Like they and that's super important and like I think something everyone needs to learn is how to love
Yeah.
yourself in all the flaws and all and everything. Um and it's gonna be really fun to like get up on that stage and really exciting to be able to like tell that story to an audience and like live that for 4 nights.
Yeah. And it's got to be really interesting to go on that journey
Hmm.
of self love and transformation in that way while having to maintain a relationship with the audience.
Yeah,
Because it is a thing where it's like, it's a very intimate kind of invitation, even though it's a
yeah,
scripted show.
yeah. It's a scripted show, and like there are parts of it where like it is you do have like some improv in it, and like it's going to be a different show every time every night, you know. That's just how the nature of theater, but like interacting with the audience or like how you're feeling that day or everything just has the capability because there is improv written in the show to like change what's going to happen and like how do you
Hmm.
manage to do that and like maintain the character correctly and everything. Like it's going to be such a fun challenge to do, especially because like coming off the last couple of shows that I've done, I was in the ensemble for them, which is fun and cool, but
Hmm.
like in different styles of music that aren't Hedwig at all. Like I did She Loves Me, and then I was the understudy for Little Mermaid, and then I did Wild Party and Three Penny Opera. Um,
A
None
lot
of
of
those are
lot of very different
styles,
shows. A lot of very
very
different
different
shows.
shows. But like none of them stylistically match Hedwig at all.
But Bertolt Brecht isn't like Little Mermaid or Hedwig.
What? No. But like it's really cool to like like get to experience this and like get to play around with the different styles and
Hmm.
stuff. Like that's always been like my coolest thing and favorite thing of like the voice and like what it can do, right? Like I love all the different things the voice can do. How do we
Hmm.
manipulate it to make it sound different? Like, how does like raising this or like moving this here or like just using like this side of my lips change the way everything sounds? Like,
Hmm.
I'm that weird kid who, like, during theater school would sit in a mirror and be like, I'm going to just say the vowel E and move this tongue around and see how many different iterations of this vowel I can make, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so like getting to apply all of that to Hedwig is going to be really fun because again, like all the songs are different styles of music. Like
Yeah.
it's not all rock, it's not all pop. It is kind of country. Um and like also like doesn't have to be pretty singing the whole time. It is a rock musical. So like let's dig into the grunge a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun and exciting.
God.
Yeah.
I really love that, and I'm really glad to see this kind of challenge come your way because I mean, like, I've only seen you act a little bit, but to be able to do a show where it's like you literally have to not only be the lead, but in a sense be a conductor
Yeah.
is, I think, just something I think that can really allow the actor not only to, not only in terms of character embodiment, but in terms of just like how much of your own being you really like allowed to like shine through the production, because like you really do have to
Yeah.
like let so much of yourself like in it, like because like you're hosting a party,
Yeah.
and like you really do have to like really make sure that the audience like is with you, and
Hmm.
that in a way you're developing a relationship. It's a unique challenge that I feel like that so many projects don't allow you to
Yeah.
have, and like I cannot imagine like the kind of like growth that can get facilitated through that. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
an exciting thing to kind of move through.
Oh yeah, and that's something that I've talked about with the JD a couple times. It's just like the cool growth that's gonna happen for this. Because like I'm not gonna lie, I've wanted to play like this type of role forever. Like the MC in Cabaret, the leading player
Yeah.
in Pippin. Like those are roles that are so interesting to me, and like I've been wanting to like dive into for so long, and to get Hedwig is amazing and like such a cool opportunity to get to play with some of the energies that I've been wanting to experiment with in the theater world.
Hmm.
It's just going to be incredible, and I'm thrilled. I also get to do it with Crystal as my Yitzhak, and I was the understudy for Michael and Tick Tick Boom, and Crystal was Michael. Um, so like getting to do work with them again is going to be really cool. Me and
Hmm.
Ismail did Three Penny Opera together,
Hmm.
so like getting to work with them again is gonna be cool, especially in such a different medium, you know? Because like
Yeah.
the last show we did together was Three Penny Opera. It's opera. And now we're doing Hedwig. Like also the range, you know? The range from being able to do all of the things. And like that's also like the trans actors in the city have the range, y'all. Like we can go from doing Three Penny Opera to being Hedwig, and
Hmm.
Yitzhak. We can do Michael in Tick Tick Boom and do Yitzhak and Hedwig. Like we can do all of the things. Like let us do them, and see how much cooler your show looks. um See how much fun and joy we can bring to the room once you let yourself have that creativity to imagine a world that already exists where trans people are all around you.
Hmm.
Like it's so wild. Also like understand that like every different body type can be a love interest. Like uh the lack of creativity in some casting sometimes is
Yeah.
just like cool, you cast all the conventionally attractive people in this role, and like great, you do know that like half the population doesn't look like any of these folks that are like ripped, and the message you're sending is that they're the only ones who deserve love,
Hmm.
so maybe expand that beyond that, and
Not only that,
expand
but you also must be very affluent.
exactly that, like no, everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves home, and a
Hmm.
place to rest, and to be seen in the arts all
Hmm.
over the place. Like, let's go. Let's let this happen and like be more creative. Like, we are a creative field. Like, why are we stifling our creativity by not letting everyone have a seat at the table?
Hmm.
What does anyone get from that? Except the same five stories told the same five ways over and over again.
Hmm. And also, let's never underestimate the capacity for anyone's ability to be seen through somebody else's lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be surprised. You'd be so fucking surprised.
Oh my God, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. There was a audition posting a while ago that went up, and one of the character descriptions was Latinx or white. And I straight up went to somebody who was involved with production, was like, "You do know that I'm Latinx, right? can I not come in for this role now? Like that's how that felt.
Yeah, and
And they
all,
were like, oh,
and
there you go. You
this
understand
is
now.
this is a conversation I've had with people where I'm like, hey, look, hey, I'm Latino. I'm not a person of color. You do realize the spectrum of color
The spectrum,
in our countries is just as
li-
vast as America. It is
literally,
just as vast.
like this is, I might get yelled at for people for this, but I don't care. I would love to see a dark-skinned Usnavi at some point in my life in the Heights. I have
You mean
never
an
seen.
accurately portrayed Usnavi?
I didn't say accurately. I didn't say accurately. I just said dark
I
skinned.
mean
Okay.
that would be so much more accurate.
But like, come on, like let's let it happen. Benny doesn't have to only be the only dark skinned person in the show for that
Yeah,
storyline to still work.
yeah, but also it's like how many fucking Dominicans are Caribbean?
I mean, speak on it. But literally, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like also like not all Latinx people look like J-Lo. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not all Pitbull. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of us look like Sammy Sosa when he was playing baseball. Some of us look like Sammy Sosa now. Um
I feel like that needs to be everyone's spectrum of Latinidad is the Sammy Sosa stages.
but like everybody still thinks that like all Latinx people are like look like J-Lo and like Shakira and like no, we don't all look like that. Some of us are Celia Cruz.
Yeah, yeah, or they're Aubrey Plaza. It's
Right,
it's literally that vast. It's that vast.
right. They'll believe that, though. I mean, she is, but like me and Cameron Diaz can be standing next to each other, and someone would be like, "Hey, who are the Latinx people in this room?" And I'm never gonna get chosen.
Yeah, that's fucking
Like,
wild.
and it's like it's wild how we have shifted how this art form, like not just theater and but film, like has shifted can shift perspectives on what people look like and what the
Yeah.
general like everything is like if you start casting more inclusively and like let like you're not always the right person for the job, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for this production of In the Heights, we let a Latinx person cast instead of a white person cast it. Maybe we find a Cuban or Dominican director or somebody from the Caribbean to cast the show and like watch what happens, watch how it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
maybe we let a black woman direct Once on This Island and see how that changes the story.
Yeah.
Um and like how it enhances everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just gets makes so much cooler art and so many
Mm-hmm.
stories. Like you can tell all of these stories so many different ways if you let different people
Mm-hmm.
tell them. And like
Yeah.
there's some people that are like, oh, I don't like the way Broadway's going right now. It's not the right type of musicals and theater that I want to see. Blah 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 blah. Well, that's because you don't let anybody do theater that's different than what you want to see.
Yeah, and also it's kind of like I'm sure your community theater, your regional theater is going to be doing the shit that you want to see anyway. So yeah, go fuck off. And
Like go
and also it's kind of like if we let Latin people and Black people do some of this casting, it's just I'm gonna let myself have this little prissy bitch moment right now. Maybe we won't have any more Italians in Chicago playing Usnavi.
well. And on that note, bye. But like that is a thing. Like if you let us cast the shows, look at how the authenticity changes and like
Yes.
how like it becomes how this like authentic portrayal enhances the story, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that like Lin Manuel was terrible because he wasn't Dominican. I'm just saying it would have been a different story had a
Yeah.
Dominican actor been cast in that role. Um, like that's all. And like we have to allow for that to exist in the world.
Yes.
And we also have to allow that for like variation from the Broadway casting to exist. right? Like we
Yes.
don't have to cast things the way that Broadway did it every time. Like if I wanted to see the Broadway production of something every time I saw that show, I would just watch the tour that came out after the Broadway production and wouldn't go to my community, like the theater that is in my community. Because like why are you casting it exactly the same?
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah. Exactly. Inject new life. Allow us to. I think all of this honestly comes down to this allowing us to imagine a new world.
Right. Like Oklahoma, the tour that just went through that had Sis as Adel Annie
Mhm.
was so cool. They did some really cool things and it was so much fun because like they allowed it to be different. Lori was a black woman, Adel Annie was a black trans woman. The guy who sings Everything's Up to Date in Kansas City was a
Mhm.
trans man. And like you also have to allow for levels of visibility within like the trans folks, right? Like I know that Sis is a trans woman and like she's very proud and out about that all the time. But like I didn't know that Hennessy, who played um the Everything's Up to Date in Kansas City guy, was
Mhm.
trans until like I looked for that information.
Yeah.
Um and like that's also a thing. Like not all of us want to be super visible in it. Some of us do just want to pass. And you also have to let space exist for that too. But in
Mhm.
general, please be more creative
Yeah.
in your casting. Like if you're gonna cast it the same way that if you're doing the same musical that that company did down the street the year later, and you're gonna cast it exactly the same, why do I need to see your production?
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
the next musical theater company is gonna do that same musical and cast the same 5 people, why do I need to see their production? Also, the musical theater companies can do different musicals.
Yes.
We
Yes.
don't all have to do the same musical within one season of each other.
Yes. Be more creative in your casting. And on that note, I think
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and call it a wrap on the conversation. Larry, thank you
All
so
right.
much for joining me. This has been so damn fun.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All
Good night.
right. All right. Take care. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. This should be live on YouTube in the coming days. The VOD will still be up on Twitch, and I'll go ahead and post a few clips on the Instagrams if you are interested in checking those out. And yeah, make sure to follow Larry on Instagram, the Twitter, and every other socials at Trice Belts, LTRICEBELTS. And remember, they have 4 guarantees for Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So keep an eye out for when those dates are published. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.